All right, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the future active middle indicative form and function. So before we begin, I do want to say that the future tense in Greek functions identically to the future tense in English. So we have our sentence, the fox jumps over the dog. Oh, I need my subject. The fox jumps over the dog. And so this is, as we've said, this is a present active indicative sentence. Fox is our subject, jumps is our verb, dog is our object. So this is just a real basic sentence. We have one verb, which makes it nice. We have one preposition, so we know spatially what's happening between the fox and the dog. But now we can change the tense, as we've seen before. We can change the tense to past tense. The fox jumped, and all we would do is just get rid of the S, put an ED, jumped over the dog. So this is an action that happened in the past, but we can also change it into the future. So I'm going to get rid of that ed. I'm going to put the fox will jump over the dog. And again, as I've been saying, the indicative is the mood of reality, which means that this is going to happen. It's a predictive element. That's pretty confident here. So we can see that even in the future tense, while there is still some predictability, it's still the mood of reality. So again, I can give you another sentence. I'm going to do this one in the future. I will. Will is going to be kind of the helper word we use to identify the future tense. I will attend school in the fall. So again, the will, I will attend school in the fall. I could get rid of the will, make it past tense. I attended school in the fall. So now we're thinking of the 2015 year, and you would immediately think that this was past tense. This is not going to be future tense. So we have a lot of flexibility with the future tense in English and in Greek. And so we see that the function of the future tense is identical to the future, or for the function in English. So one thing that we do want to talk about is that kind of the time aspect is not from our aspect. So when we're reading anything in the future, if I were to write in the future aspect would not be for you, the reader, but it would be for me as the writer. So the aspect is from my point of view, not necessarily from yours. Same thing when we're reading scripture. The future aspect is from the perspective of the writer, not from the reader. We read a lot of prophecy in scripture, and that prophecy is obviously is referenced for the future tense is referenced for the person speaking, not necessarily for us. Before we get into that, I want to talk about principal parts. Principal parts is kind of the key to understanding verbs. One thing we do notice about English is that English has 3 principal parts. The disadvantage there is that there are probably a dozen, or actually there's dozens of variations of how you can say it. You have the active, you have the simple past, and then you also have the, I want to say the kind of a participle, but you can kind of see how they function indifferently. Greek has 6 principal parts, but with probably variations of hundreds of different ways you can say the same verb. Now, the advantage to Greek over English is that there's a system, there's paradigms for these principal parts. So if you learn the paradigm of, or the principal parts of words, you can know what the tense is going to be and how to identify it. So Greek has very easy ways to identify their verbs. English, not so much. So the first principal part we've already learned extensively here is the present active, or actually just the present tense. The active voice and the middle passive voice fall under the first principal part. And so here we see that this is the case of luo, as we would say is the paradigm. The future active middle indicative is the second principal part. And this is going to be the future active / middle. And it's not going to be passive because passive is going to have a different form, and we're going to talk. I'll talk about that here shortly. Future active / middle. The third principal part is going to be the aorist. This is going to be the completed past tense. We'll talk more about this in a couple weeks. And this is going to be the aorist active / middle. Again, we can see them there. The fourth principal part is going to be the perfect active. The fifth principal part is going to be the perfect middle passive. We'll learn these later. And then the sixth principal part is primarily going to be the aorist passive, or the kind of a subpoint under this would be the future passive, just because it's going to take the same form, just is going to look slightly different without an augment. We'll talk about the augment later. But the key to understanding the principal parts, if you understand the principal parts for all verbs, you will be able to unlock all verbs. So let's just go ahead and complete this for you. Luso, elusa. So the augment right here is the epsilon before the stem. We'll learn that later. Leluca, lelumai, and then we have eluthane. Is what we're going to find for the principal parts here. Not all verbs have principal parts. If you're looking at a lexical form and you see something like where you would find luo, this is a bad example because luo has 6. But if you were to find luo, comma, dash, dash, and then eluthane. So in this particular example, assuming luo didn't have 6 principal parts, you would find some dashes here, basically saying that there is no principal part. So there would be no future, there would be no aorist, there would be no perfect, at least in the New Testament sense. So that's kind of what you would see there. I recommend when you're learning the lexical forms, learn the principal parts as well. All words are going to have a different principal part, but they're all going to have basically the same pattern. You can expect to see the same thing in all of them. So that is the principal part. We're going to be talking more about these later. So we're going to get very familiar with the principal parts, as they are, like I said, keys to understanding and knowing and recognizing the verbs in Greek. So with that said, let's go ahead and look at the future active indicative and kind of see what we're going with. So first things first, we have the stem of the word, and the stem, as we've already learned in nouns and in verbs, is that the stem carries the basic meaning of the word. So we have the stem, lu, right? Mm-hmm. And so lu is the stem, and the stem carries the basic meaning to loose, right?
Right.
And so with the personal endings, we're going to figure out how this is going to change. So if it's the first person singular personal ending, to loose is going to become I loose. And so the personal ending is going to determine function. The stem is going to determine meaning. But there's going to be some different things happening. So we've been talking a little bit about tense formatives, right?
Right.
So the future active or the future middle will always have a tense formative. And that tense formative is going to be sigma. So we have lu plus sigma. I'm going to write tense form down here. the key thing to know about the tense formative is that the tense formative is not just like a sigma that you throw in the mix. But what happens here is that the stem and the tense formative meet, and then so the new stem, at least in the future, is loose. So this is the key. The tense formative attaches to the end of the stem and it changes. And so there is some morphology here, but we still see the stem loo. There are some words where you're going to see some change. The rule stops we're going to talk about tonight. So we now have kind of the stem in the future as loose. The tense formative is adding to the stem. So then we also have our connecting vowel, right? So we could go loose plus, I'm going to go CV for connecting vowel. Let's just go Omicron. So loose, so. And now we're going to go plus our what? Plus our personal ending, right? I'll just write E for short. And this is kind of how to form, I'll get rid of this here. So this is kind of how to form the future verbs. We have our stem plus the tense formative. So the stem in the future tense is loose. So this is where the stem is going to be different. Stem is changing. Plus the connecting vowel Omicron or epsilon, plus the personal ending men equals loosomen. And this means, this means in the future, we will loose. And so we see loosomen, again with the stem, too loose, meaning the tense formative and the personal endings becomes we will loose. So one of the really nice things about the future is that it doesn't look very different from the personal. So let me just write this out for you. So we have luso, as we would expect. Then we have luces, and then we have luce, and we have lusomen, and we have lucete, and then we have lususen. And so this is the paradigm for the future. You're going to see that there's not really a whole lot of difference here. But now I'm going to go ahead and give you the present active indicative paradigm so you can kind of see the difference between the two. So we have luo, lues, lue, luomen, luete, luusen. And so that's the paradigm here. So we see the sigma in every single case in the future has added to the stem, whereas in the personal you see that we have no sigma. Yes?
Luis, how do you get the iota between the connecting vowel and the...
Oh, right here?
The ending.
And nothing happens there?
Yeah.
It's the present active indicative. That's the form. There is no contracting, unless it's a contracting vowel. In the primary middle passive personal endings, there is some change happening here. That's part of the rules. Other than that, there is no contracting iota in the future active, or I should say in the primary active personal endings, unless it's a contracting vowel.
So the iota just ends up there because it sounds nice?
Sure. Yeah, let's go with that. It's just one of the rules. It just is one of the weird ways of Greek. Not much more to it there. But I also want to talk about the square of stops. We learned a little bit about the square of stops in the third declension. The verbs are going to be kind of more of a brutal killer for the square of stops. So if you don't know the square of stops now, it is absolutely important. that you spend some time memorizing them, learning them, so you know what happens. So just by way of recap, the velar,
Kappa, lambda.
Kappa,
gamma, P.
Yeah, P. So the velar is the part of your mouth where you're trying to pronounce the kappa, the gamma, and the key at the back of your tongue with your teeth. Kappa, gamma, key. So then we also have the labial, the lips. These are the consonants that we're pronouncing with our lips. And these are P, beta, and phi. And so this is the labial. And then the dental, we are pronouncing with the front of our teeth. This is tau, theta, and delta. And so the square of stops is what happens when you introduce a sigma. So we're going to go plus sigma. So we could really just go kappa, sigma, or we could go gamma, sigma, or we could go xi, sigma. This is really what this is all about. And then the end result is that there's some contraction here. You're not going to see a circumflex because that's only over vowels, but you're going to have them morph into a xi. So x, 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 as you try to pronounce those, and it's a very strong, strong kind of X sound with a sigma. So the labial, we could do the same thing. So it's going to be P with a sigma, or a beta and a sigma, or a phi and a sigma. And the end result is going to be a psi. This is just basically what's happening here. And then the dental would be a tau and a sigma, or a theta and a sigma, or a delta and a sigma. And the end result is going to be a sigma.
So basically the consonants, they drop out in the sigma states.
Exactly. Well,
Some opposite of a liquid verb where the sigma drops in
right.
final state.
So the liquid stops, or the square stops, if you're not familiar with them, they're gonna make your life trying to recognize the form of verbs that much easier, because they're going to come into play in the future and in the aorist tense. So here's a great example. So blepo, as you've already learned, is a word that means I see, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so we have blepo in the present active indicative, meaning I see. However, in the future active indicative, blepo is going to have something happen to it. So we have the stem blep meeting the tense formative. I'm just going to write TF for short, sigma, resulting in sigma attaching itself to the stem. The end result here is not going to be blepso or bleps, but it's going to instead be bleps with a psi here, because we have the sigma and the p changing into the psi. So then we can add the personal ending of o. So blepso is I will see. So we can see a little bit of change here. All that we've done is change the tense from present to future. We've kept everything identical. And so another great look at this is going to be, say, patho with a theta. So patho means I persuade. And so we could see in the future where it's going to be path, which is the stem meeting the tense formative sigma, becoming peso. The iota drops out here. It is what it is, but if you at least are comfortable with the rule of stops, you can identify what's happening here, and you won't be thrown for a loop. I'll just go ahead and do one more for you. Actually, iota does not drop out. That was my bad. So one more for you. So Dioko, I think I seem in the future, because we have the stem here with the kappa, it's going to become Dioxo with a C there. So I think I seem, I will think, I will seem is what the new lexical form again, or what the, not lexical form, inflected meaning is going to be. Again, when you're parsing verbs, we can go for blepo, or for blepso, we can go future active indicative, first person singular, from blepo, because we were looking at the present active indicative form of that word, meaning I will see. So when you're parsing, you're going to parse tense, voice, mood like you have, person, number, again like you have, so the future versus present, so far the two tenses we know. The lexical form will always be the present active indicative form of that word.
So I'm going back to Dioxo.
Dioxo.
So you got that because it was going to be joined with sigma.
Yep.
Omega.
The tense, no, the omega is the connecting vowel and the lack of personal ending. The omicron in the connecting vowel lengthens to omega. That there is no personal ending in the present active indicative, or in the first person singular verbs. That's going to be all over the board. You have the connecting vowel omicron, no personal ending. The omicron lengthens to an omega. That's what it does.
Okay.
But that's kind of what to look at there. So we also want to look at the future middle indicative paradigm. So last week we talked a little bit about the deponent verbs. The deponent, what kind of makes it a deponent verb special is that it takes the form of a middle passive, or sorry, a middle indicative verb. So erikomai is a deponent verb, meaning I come, I go, but the ending is middle.
Right. So
it has a middle ending. We're going to talk a little bit more about a passive ending later. It's going to become a little bit more clear when we get into, say, the perfect or the aorist. They have a different form. So erikomai takes the primary middle passive ending. And so the future is going to be no sense. Erikomai I'm not going to do because erikomai changes quite a bit, so that one is not going to be a great one. But paruamai, a word we've learned already, which is I come, I go. So here we have the stem, paru, connecting vowel omicron, and then personal ending mai. So in the future, paruamai becomes parusamai. And so we see, again, the tense formative connecting to the stem, omicron as the connecting vowel, and mai as the personal ending. So let's go ahead and complete this. Oh, I need a sigma there, because it is the tense formative. So paruse, as we've seen in the middle passive, the true ending is psi. All of the lengthening, all of the contracting happens before the sigma rests on the stem. Parusatai, parusametha, parusesta, paru santai. And we can see that this is, even though this is deponent, paruamai at least is in the future middle. This is going to be the paradigm. While you're going to have a different stem, obviously, you're going to have the same personal endings all across the board with the same connecting vowels, as we can just kind of see all throughout this.
Oh, I see. Because when you put the epsilon for like Peru, say, the connecting vowels, epsilon,
which,
and then you've got the sigma between two vowels.
Yeah, so you have the connecting vowel epsilon here, plus the case ending psi. The sigma drops out, as we learned last week. The alpha and the eta, or sorry, the epsilon and the alpha, they contract and they lengthen to the A, as we learned in contract verbs. So that's where we get that. And then the iota subscripts, as you can see it right there. And so that's what's happening here. The true case ending, or the personal ending, is maisai tai, methastha in time. So that's very important to know. So it's better to memorize the maisai tai versus the paradigm, because later on it'll make
because they do different things.
They do different things. Yep. There's some contracting here, which is why we see an eta and an iota, subscripted iota. I want to talk a little bit about the Amy verb. We learned Amy a long time ago. I am, I will, I am, I exist. We've seen just some of the ways that the to be verb works, but we also want to look at kind of how the to be functions in the future. So the future of Amy is going to be a deponent verb. So you're not going to find the form like Luso. Amy's odd like that. Amy changes quite often, so get used to it now. But the nice thing is that once you learn the forms of Amy, you don't learn anything new about Amy. Its form is what it is. So the form of Amy is actually going to be a future deponent, where it has a middle passive case ending, but it's going to have an active meaning, like what we saw with paruo, paruamai, or even erikomai. I come, I go, I go. You can see that they have an active sense, but they have a middle passive form. So we have Amy in the future is going to be esomai, essay, following that third person singular. And then we have esometha, essesta, and then I forgot one. I actually forgot. Essatai, and then esometha, and then essesta, and then esantai. And this means I will be, you will be, he will be, we will be, y'all will be, or you will be, and then they will be. So it has that feature. There isn't a passive or a middle sense to it. It is middle in form, active in meaning, and that's what the deponent means. So I think we have enough now to talk kind of about how the future works. The future, as I said earlier, functions just like the English, so there's really no difference there. The future passive, you are going to add that to be verb. We're going to learn that later. We don't need to learn that now. Like I will be prayerful later. Well, prayerful is more of an adverb. I will be eating later. I will be eating later is kind of a standard of a passive sentence. I will be eating by the fire would be a true passive, or the fire will be eaten by me, or something like that. Would be more of a passive sense. But I want to kind of finish talking about the master verb chart. We started in the master verb chart. We've learned two components of that, and that's in the present tense, right? So we start with the tense. That's the first information we start with. Then we look at the augment or the reduplication. And then we look at the tense stem. What tense is the stem in?
It is present.
Well, we'll get there here shortly. And then we look at the tense formative. I'm just going to write TF. And then we also look at the connecting vowel. And then we also look at the personal ending. And then over here we can just write first singular paradigm. And we can just kind of say this is the pattern that is going to take. Of all the information, the first singular paradigm is probably the least important. It just kind of tells you how things are. So, starting over here, when we first started filling this out, we were talking about the present tense, right?
Right.
We were talking more specifically about the present active sense. Is there an augment for the present tense? We don't know what an augment is yet, so we'll leave that blank. The tense stem in the present is a present tense stem. The tense formative, there is no tense formative. Connecting vowel is going to be omicron or epsilon. And then the personal ending, as we've learned in the chart, is going to be primary active. We learned nothing new tonight with that chart because the middle passive is going to take the primary middle passive personal ending. So we'll just write prime act, short for primary active, and then the first singular paradigm is going to be luo. So then last week we then talked about the present middle passive. So in the tense, it's still going to be present, nothing new there. No augment, no reduplication. The tense stem is present because luo, the stem does not change in the present. So we're going to go present. Tense formative, no tense formative. Connecting vowel, we're going to go omicron epsilon. Personal ending is actually going to be primary middle passive. So this is the other form of the chart. And then the paradigm is going to be luomai. So today we're going to actually add two. We've learned two things to the master verb chart. What tense did we learn today? We learned future. So the tense is future. Augment or reduplication? No. Tense stem is actually going to be future active. The stem has officially changed in the future. So we'll write future active. And the tense formative is going to be sigma because it forms to the end of the stem, changing the stem. The connecting vowel is still omicron epsilon, makes that nice. The personal ending is going to be primary active. Luso is going to be the first singular paradigm. So the reason why it's primary active is because it takes the active personal endings. So then we're still in the future tense, so we're going to write future. So we're going to write future middle. We don't know middle passive yet. We do know future middle. So the augment reduplication, we're going to leave blank because there is no augment here. The tense stem is going to be future active. Why? Because loose is still the stem. This is how the stem has changed. So we still have that tense formative sigma attaching itself to the end of the stem, changing the stem. Our connecting vowel still omicron epsilon. Our personal ending here is going to be primary middle passive. And then the paradigm here, we're going to go parousemai.
So Lu won't do middle or future middle.
No, you might find luo in the future middle, but parousemai is going to be kind of to show kind of the deponent aspect of it. Not that all future middles are deponent, but parousemai is deponent. Amy in the future is deponent, so it's going to take the middle form, but still be,
Right.
yeah, still function as an active. You might find something like lusamai. You might find it. I don't know for sure, but you could easily find lusamai. But this is the master verb chart. As you can see, just even in one lesson, we've added 2 more categories to it. And I want to just reiterate with the master verb chart that if you can learn the master verb chart and you can learn the tense, you can learn everything that's happening in that specific tense.